And tonight we're looking at the agents AI, okay, or AI agents. Why is this so important? Well, in the last 3, 4, 5 years, agentic AI, and generative has been really growing. But now that, it's only what you do with it. But the next step is agents, where we can take an agent and we're going to make that agent into something that helps us on a daily basis. In fact, it's going to help us as a user and for you as a startup founder. We want you to be able to use your agents to become much more productive, to be much more effective in what you do, and to give you that competitive advantage. Now, what is AI for? Well, AI isn't there just to make our lives easier. It is to help us do all of those other things that a whole bunch of other people in the other things that keep us from these face-to-face events. Okay. And that's what we want to focus on, is with you and I here doing business. That's where we want our time. And so that's where we're going to spend. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for getting AI to do everything else. And over the series, we are starting with the first few sessions with pitching, because there are 5 areas that we pitch. We pitch to our investors, we pitch to our partners and our advisors, our mentors. We pitch to our customers and clients. We pitch to our team, and we pitch to ourselves. And each one of these has a different way to pitch, and we're so excited. Oh, Cyrus, thanks. Welcome to see all of you here, so you can start building these bots, or these agents, and to help you be more effective in what you're doing. And I'd like to introduce Bijoy Sen from Palantir. He has joined me, and if any of you were here for the last session of the last program, Bijoy's colleague, co-founder, CEO, Saqib, was here talking about the personal agents, or personal bots. Okay, and so now we're taking it to the next level. And if any of you have been reading the press, everything's going so fast. And when we start going so fast, that means we need to keep track of what's going on. We need to stay ahead of the curve. So thank you all again for coming. I'm going to introduce Bijoy. Then he's going to share where he works, Palantir, and he's going to build us using an agent. He's going to build a pitch deck and to present that pitch deck to us. Then also, and what I find is fantastic, because I've been teaching pitching and public speaking for almost 30 years now, over 30 years now. And I started in Silicon Valley, where that pitch is much more valuable than it is here in Asia. Because here in Asia, just tell them what I'm going to do. But no, that pitch is to gain that traction. That pitch is to build that trust with that buyer, with that investor, because you've only got a few minutes and you need to make sure that you connect with them. And so that's what we're really looking at. There are 3 market forces that are shaping our market, our world right now. And these are the market forces that prove that this is so important. And first is the social. And there are massive startups initiated around the world, right? Every government I know in the developing nations, and especially in Vietnam, if any of you have been to Vietnam, that the government's pouring money. In Hong Kong, the government's pouring money. I think Singapore, the government's pouring money into these startups and the initiatives. But economically, the funding is tighter than ever. Massively, millions and billions of dollars are going to these big AI tech startups. And so where does that money come from? You and I, okay? But Founders Institute has created an AI platform for you and I. It used to be just an LMS, a learning management system, but now it is a platform for you and I. You see, the problem is, and Shakib told me this one, every day on average, 137,000 startups are launched. But how many of them are successful? Very few. Why is that? Well, because the founders have great ideas, but they don't know how to build that business. So I'm going to pass the microphone to Bijoy, where Bijoy is going to start from scratch. And I'm not going to give it away. I don't want to be a spoiler here. So Bijoy, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Warren. Let me just very quickly share my screen here. So if I very briefly go over what AI agents are and why it's important. So obviously we know what AI is. It's a subset of machine learning. And we have deep learning and then multiple different actions, which is where agents come into play, right? So give me a sec. Yeah, so AI agents. So AI agents are basically intelligent systems that uses the capabilities of LLMs in doing tasks that you want, okay? Using tools like Google Docs, Google Drive, multiple different calendars, emails, Calendly, whatever you call, right? Whatever you need in your business, automations are built using AI agents so that they can use LLM to use your data to automate your tasks. And then we have chatbots. So chatbots are traditional forms of, AI agents. So chatbots are also AI agents. They use LLMs, and it's all general purpose. You use it every single day. Gemini, ChatGPT, DeepSeek, use it every single day for multiple different tasks, right? But the capability lackings of these kind of like general purpose LLMs or chatbots are that they can't function with multiple different tools, which is why, if you notice, the latest version of ChatGPT includes a lot of different integrations with apps. So you can also call that like a minor update, but it's huge in terms of AI agentic workflows. So that's AI agents, and difference between LLM RAG. I don't think that's a bit necessary for this. But so the concept of AI agents are something like this. So you have a day-to-day plan or task that you need to do, and then you have AI agents that use LLM endpoints, or rather the functionality of LLMs, and also has a memory and a database that, where you can store your knowledge, store the context, and use that LLM to parse that context and use tool integrations, just like I said, email, calendar, whatever, and then complete your task completely automatically. So that's AI agents for you. And this is a very small difference between what automations and AI workflows and AI agents are. And the most differentiating factor is the type of task that you would do with each one of them. So automations are repetitive tasks that you need every single day. So for example, for us, right, once we do an AI audit for a firm, we need to create at least 20 to 30 decks for the entire process. So it's usually a 6 months process, and we have to make 20 to 30 decks. So the templates of these decks are pretty, standard. We use our templates, obviously, but it's a repetitive task. So automation, like automating this process, would be really good for us. And the AI workflows are basically complex tasks. So multiple different automations make up an AI workflow. And you can also add AI agents into the mixture. So AI agents at the end are adaptive and dynamic tasks managers. So if you have one particular task that would need the capability of an LLM, you build an AI agent. So there you go. And for today's agenda, like Dr. Warren said, the first part would be to actually make sure that we understand how to build an AI agent, where we can build a agent that creates pitch decks for us, all right? So most of you here would need pitch decks every single day. And for this purpose, for the purpose of the demonstration today, we have a scenario in mind that, okay, you are a startup and you have a document, which is going to be the input document, and you want to put all of your information in this particular document, right? For example, your company name, your tagline, and this is all mock demo data, by the way. So what's the problem you're solving? What's your particular solution? And then highlight of your product, And then, what's your market opportunity, right? So these are all data that you should already have, and maybe not in such a structured format. It might be, paragraphs, it might be tables, whatever we call it, right? So that doesn't matter at all, but for the purpose of demonstration, we kept it simple. And then the competitive advantage, landscape, maybe also put in a perceptual mapping, and then business model, obviously, traction to date. What's your revenue so far? How many clients do you have? What's your average ticket size? And then your GTM strategies. So this is basically all the information that you would generally put in a pitch deck, right? So how do you make sure that this whole information is converted in such a way that at the end you get a pitch deck that's, that can be templatized and can be used as is. Okay, but obviously, having said that, pitch decks are so unique person to person. Obviously, you're going to have to do some sort of modification, but that's at the end of the whole thing. Because I was talking to Dr. Warren before this, and he said that one of his clients took six hours to create one pitch deck. It doesn't take 6 hours to create one pitch deck. That's way too long of a time to invest in this. So our whole point would be to create an agentic workflow where the agent parses this information in the doc and creates contents for your pitch deck. Okay, so let's go over to Anyden. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of Anyden before. So Anyden is personally my favorite AI agentic platform. So you can build multiple different AI agents, AI workflows, whatever you want with Anyden. And the good thing about Anyden is, and if I'm not wrong, this is the only open source platform out there. So if you want to use Anyden on the cloud, you have to pay, I think, about $60 per month, which is a bit steep for a lot of people. But the good thing is you can also host Anyden locally. It's just an NPM install. It's as simple as that. Okay. So you can, host it locally, you can use it locally, and you can use all the functionalities of Anyden forever. That's one of the mandates, actually. So I already have this built out, but just for the sake of explanation, I'm going to build it out again. And so what I'm going to do is, in Hong Kong it's 7:20 p.m. So I'm going to start tracking the time, so it we can show you guys how long it took for us to build it, right? If I speed run it, I can actually finish this in probably 10 minutes end to end. Starting from the doc input to building the agent, and then putting it into Gamma, which is what we're going to use to create the slides, and then export in Google Sheets, Google Slides, my bad. So this whole thing for me, if I speed run, would take about 10 minutes. So it's not really that hard to understand and learn as well, because it's all drag and drop, just like we Scratch from before, MIT's. Anyways, so what we do is we start with a trigger. So the whole point of an automation is that it needs to be triggered by something. It can be an update on a Google Sheet. It can be a Slack ping. It can be, a Telegram message. Whatever you want can be used as a trigger. But again, for the sake of simplicity, what we did was it's just a manual click as an entry point. So I'm going to delete this because I need it. You can have only one manual trigger. But anyway, so before, it's very good to have a standardized document or SOP before you want to create an agentic workflow. So you know what to do and what to use actually, right? So for us, the SOP would be to create an agent that takes in Google Docs and parses through the text and basically spits out, the pitch deck content in a manageable manner, right? So what I'll do is I'll click on this plus button and let me just type in AI agent. It's going to bring up the AI agent node. If I click on it, and there are two options basically. So you can use it as a chat trigger, which will basically bring up a chat functionality, but we don't want that for now. What we're going to do is we're going to define the prompt below. So that's our prompt, but that's the user prompt. So some of you might say that, okay, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, ChatGPT would be able to do it as well. And I'm pretty sure, most of us use ChatGPT for slides as well, But the problem with ChatGPT is that it's so, user-centric that you can't really tap into the system messages or system prompts. But with AI, like this particular AI agent, what you can do is you can basically click on add options and you can have system message. So system message is basically a place where you put forward guidelines and guardrails for your AI agent. So how do you want it to act? okay, the way that you would want it to act is not generally what you're going to put in the user message. But for any sort of GPT application, that's what we do, right? But that's not technically correct. So it's much better to put in like instructions in the system message. All right. So let's start with that. Now we have the user prompt and the message, like the system prompt. So how do we make sure that we can, properly make the AI agent understand what sort of pitch deck that we want? So I've prepared a template for you guys. I'll just simply copy paste at this point. So what I'll do is I'll copy paste this, and also I'll go over this in a sec. So okay, perfect. Hey doc, it's visible, right? Size, good. Okay, perfect. So let's look into what I put. I'll start with system message, and like I said, it's all about instructions, right? So you are an AI agent that crafts slide-by-slide content for a startup pitch deck. Keep the maximum number of slides to 10 strictly. So for our demo, we're just keeping it to 10, for simplicity. And your goals are as such, right? So one, structure and flow would be, always cover in order the following themes and omit if, blank. So let's say I put this particular, flow, which is, okay, what's your ask? How much are you raising? Is it seed, pre-seed? And it's got like Series A, Series B, what's your like stake, right? But maybe you're not, raising. So if you don't have that information, this particular AI agent will be dynamically omitting this particular part, okay? But, it's what we have is like, title, tagline, problem, solution, product overview, market opportunity, competitive like advantage, landscape, whatever we call it, business model, traction, GM strategies. It's all just basic stuff that we should definitely have in our pitch decks, right? So that's there. And then secondly, what format do we want the slides in? Because remember, I don't know if you guys used Gamma before, but this is what we're going to use to create the slides basically automatically. So what I'll do is let me go back. So it's, if you sign in, this is what you're going to see. And if you click on create new with AI and click on paste in text, what you're going to see is this screen. And this is very important because if you look at this on this slide, the sort of strategies that they want to put the slides in are something like this. So intro and then key points, and then the slides are separated by 3 dashes. Okay, so that's generally the format, the output format that we need. So if I go back to my workflow, so if you look at this, the slide's title, main content, any sort of numbers, graphs, data, whatever you want, like whatever is basically your document, and then separated by 3 dashes. So I repeated that for a few times, and then that's basically the format. And then for this particular demo, I said that, okay, never write prefixes, because sometimes if you use just GPT, you can see, like if you use ChatGPT, you can see that sometimes it's going to say, okay, slide 1, colon, and then, the slide's title, and the slide 2, colon, and then the slide's title. We don't want that, because that's going to create hallucinations and, misinformations in the whole flow. We don't want that, obviously. So I said that, okay, don't include slide 1, title 1, these sort of like prefixes, no need. And I use concise, persuasive language, highlight metrics in bold, preserve one-liner quotes or taglines for emphasis, basically, right? And for graphs and visuals, if the data is supplied, which is very important, like I said, if the data is not supplied, it's going to omit that part. If the data is supplied, specify the chart type. For example, is it a bar chart? What sort of chart are we working with, right? And if the data is missing, no need, just put placeholders or just don't, okay? Because sometimes what happens is that maybe for your particular pitch, you should put that data, but maybe you forgot in the doc, right? So it's very good to have placeholders in place so that when you're reviewing this, the pitch deck manually, you can look at that particular line and look at the placeholder and be like, oh, yeah, I do have to put it. And then for modularity purpose, I asked it to, keep all the logic like solely driven on input tools, which is, our Google Doc, and then separate each slide by these 3 dashes. That's very important. And for each slide, do not put unnecessary spaces or dash n, like /n, which is basically the way of putting a different line, and then keep the output in a very simple clear text format, and do not use markdown, because if we use markdown, it's gonna like mess up our output. So let me quickly delete this so that it's all blank. So this is our output file, by the way. So it's all blank. So once I play, or once I click on the workflow, you're gonna see how it just appears magically. And then the tone should be investor ready, obviously confident, numbers driven, minimal jargon. So the point of me creating this instructions is just for this demo, and it's to show you guys that the possibilities are endless. So for this demo, obviously we're like doing a pitch deck, but it can be used as an investor deck, a financial deck, whatever you guys want, right? But that will largely depend on how you structure the instructions, right? And then for the system prompt, so this is, the user message. So this is exactly where you put stuff like use Google Docs tool, because that's generally the way that these sort of agents understand what docs to use. Even if you add the doc in the workflow, it might not use it. So it's almost always better to say explicitly that, use Google Docs tool. So let me go over this again. So create a page step, and then fetching the entire text file to understand context. Very simple. So you take in Google Docs, you parse the entire text, you use it as context, and then proceed to creating the pitch deck according to the instructions set forward in the system prompt, right? Simple stuff. So the user message is usually very simple. You don't want to mess with that, because the best place to keep or hold context is in the system message. Okay, so that's where most of the instructions should go. Done. So that's almost half of it done. So obviously, an agent needs an LLM. So what sort of LLM do we use? You can use anything and everything. Gemini, DeepSeek. You can locally host LLMs and use it. But for simplicity, I'm just going to use OpenAI. And I already have my account credentials added. So I'm just going to use 4o Mini, which is pretty cost efficient in our experience. And then for the tools, so tools is where you add stuff like Google Docs, Calendar, any sort of vector database, Airtable. It's gonna keep on going. So I'm not gonna bother to go through it, but it's very intuitive. You can have a lot of different tools added at the same time. So for today, what we're gonna use is we're gonna use the Google Docs tool. So you have a lot of different options, but the only one we want, the operation that we want, is get. So get is basically the way that the AI agent would parse and pull the text from the doc. So the only thing that you need is the URL or doc ID, which we can get from here. So the doc ID is just after d/ and just before /edit. So this is my doc ID. Okay. So if I copy this, if I go back, put it here, that's done. Okay. So we have the chat LLM, we have the tool, and we have the AI agent set up. So the only thing we need right now is some place that we can store this particular doc, like the text, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put here. So I did the exact same thing, which is I said, okay, update, which means it's going to append and put the text in. And I said that, okay, the ID would be this, again, same thing as before. Now, if I want to test this part, I'm going to do this. Let me shrink this. And the way that you test individual nodes is by, clicking this button, test step. So I clicked on it. It's going to try to execute the node. See, it took the Google Notes doc, which means it took the text and it parses it. And then it's using the LLM to basically generate a response for us. So let's see how it goes. Should be pretty good. Okay, so talent here, the name, our tagline separated by, the separation. And then for each slide, we have this, which is exactly what we want for separation, because remember, gamma only takes 3 dashes as separators between slides. So this is exactly what we want. But if you try to use this, it's not going to work, okay? Because it's jumbled up in a sort of pseudo markdown format. So we don't really want this. What we want is something like this, right? So why don't I just go over here? And if you look at, let me actually delete this. Okay, so we have the output, But how do we make sure that that output is indexed into the Google Docs, right? So the way it happens is creating an object, which would be, the default, so you don't have to change anything else. All you do is you just use the operation called update and put in the doc ID, and then change nothing here, except if it's not in index position, what you say is the insert location would be at index 1, which means it's going to start inputting like information from the beginning of the document, basically, but it's blank, so it doesn't really matter. So what you do is, what's the text, right? What do you actually include? So what you do is you pull this particular node or the output, and you drag it and drop it here. As simple as that. And once you do it, you're going to see how it's going to look right here. See? Palantir, from idea to scale faster, problem, solution, whatever, right? So if I test this step, in fact, before doing that, let me pull this out and put it on this side, put this on this side. Oops, sorry. Okay. You guys can't see both. Sorry, wait. Interesting. Why can't I share my entire screen? Oh. Okay, never mind. Just gonna have to do it with this. Oops. Okay. Sorry for that. Pull it here. Okay. Yeah. So if I test on this step, and like I said, it's empty, right? So if I click on it and go over here, it's just gonna appear. See? As simple as that. So what it did was it separated each slide with 3 dashes, and it put all the information in for us. And the information is as good. So I always say this, that your output is as good as your input, right? So as much data as you can put in this particular document input, your output is going to be as good, So if you don't have as much information in your input, the output is not going to be good, because as a startup, you have to put forward a lot of different information. So if your instruction includes stuff like this, right? If your instruction includes slides like title, problem, solution, product overview, whatever, ideally you should have all of these information already in your input, right? So if I look at the output, right, it's pretty simple, just the way that we want. And then we copy this whole thing. We go over to Gamma. All we do is we simply paste in, as simple as that. There might be a few possibilities of stuff not happening as you want. So what you can do is you can do a manual verification of everything, if it's good or not. And then I see a few stuff happening. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just very simply put a few dashes in between. Okay, yeah. All right, perfect. Closing vision right here. Tagline. Okay, perfect. Right. So what we want is a traditional format, which is 16 by 9. And we want to preserve the exact text. Because remember, we already used an LLM to decide on what the content should be, right? And then continue to prompt editor. And let's just wait. Okay, right. So preserve the text. And then in terms of theme, so I uploaded my theme, like the one we use in the business. And I'm going to show you guys how to import your own theme, because obviously like keeping the brand image and stable is very important. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this to illustrations. And okay. Yeah, so the reason that these two are not going to show up is because Gamma, like the free version of it, can only generate 10 cards. But that's easily solvable. I think it's about $12 a month. But given that, for people that need a lot of text, every single day, every single month, I think it's very justified. So I'm just going to click on generate, because if I go over, I have the theme, I have the text context, and I have the image as illustration, because I don't really like the the AI images. So I'm just going to use illustrations for this purpose. So let me just click on generate. It should do the whole thing, in a split second. And remember, we just hit the 18 minutes mark. We still have 2 minutes left. So, okay. Palantir, our tagline, problem, the data, and then solutions, so key benefits, and then product overview. So what do we have? So screenshot and demo. Remember how I said that, okay, use placeholders? So if you have a demo, you should most definitely put the screenshots, right? But obviously the LLM doesn't have your screenshot. So you might have to change this part out, which is important. And then you can just insert your whatever features, right? Then you have the market opportunity. So it took the graph and it made it into like a interactive graph as well. And then we have the competitive advantage. Okay, see, where does Palantir stand with other places like Upwork, traditional agencies, in-house hiring? So it made the difference, table by itself, right? Another business model. So what's like, how do we make money? What's our traction right now? All those stuff. What's our GTM strategy? And it very well understood that the GTM strategy is a step-by-step thing, right? So it uses like appropriate icons and animations. And the team highlight, okay, you can change this out too with your pictures, basically. And then financial projections, blah blah blah. But yeah, so that's the whole demo of the whole thing. But okay, for you to, and we just said 90 minutes. So the full thing was generated in 90 minutes, and which would have taken, let's say, 1 to 2 hours minimum. Even if you still have this thing ready, it's still going to take you a lot of time to analyze and summarize different parts, try to think of animations, and try to think of stuff like these, right? Sorry, stuff like these. Okay, so you have to use these, obviously. That's why you use Google Slide. So you have to insert shapes. So that takes a lot of time, and it did it by itself. So that's the value that these kind of on the go pitch deck generator AI agents can come into play, right? And all we did was use how many nodes? 1, 2, 3, 3 nodes and 2 tools. That's how simple it is. And the opportunities and possibilities of creating AI agents are quite literally endless. So that's the pitch. And what we can do is, so the editing capabilities of Gamma is quite limited, in my opinion, at least, because I want like my pitch deck to be in a very particular manner. So what I do is I take this and I export as either Google Slides or as PPT. So if I think that I'm going to use Canva, what I'm going to do is I'm going to download as PPT and import on Canva as PPT. And since everything is sort of templatized, that okay, this part is the header, this part is the subheader, and then data. So what you can do is you can basically have the same functionality on Canva, on Google Slides, and whatever you want. So that's basically it. And on the past generation, this is what we got in Google Slides. And you can edit everything as much as you want. You can change the pictures. You can change the data however you want. So that's the first section of our demo. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So I know, Doc, you wanted me to pitch. So do we still do that? Wait, you muted. You muted.
Yeah. Why don't we wait until later?
Yeah, sure. That would be better. Okay. So the next part of this session is to make sure that, okay, you have the pitch deck ready and you go to a pitch, let's say to an investor. How do you talk? What do you prepare? What sort of answer should you have beforehand? And, what sort of training do you do? Because these sort of stuff are not readily available, right? Even, let's say, universities don't, obviously, but even if you want to, let's say, search on Google, search on YouTube, it's very hard to exactly understand how to talk to an investor or what to prepare for, because there are a lot of different factors. So obviously your industry, your market, and the type of investor you're talking to, the type of people they are, what's their particular mandate. So a lot of different factors have to come into play for the whole deal to work out, right? So how do you prepare for that? Why not just use AI for it? So there is this very popular platform called Poe.com, which is how people in Hong Kong like us use ChatGPT, because in Hong Kong ChatGPT is not available due to like region lock. So most people use Poe as an alternative. So in Poe, you can have multiple different options. Let's say GPT 4.1, GPT 4.0, Grok, O3 Pro, Claude Sonnet, and then Gemini. So it's like a compilation of all different LLMs in one place. So people love using it. So for this particular purpose, what we're going to do is we're going to create a particular bot that talks to us, interviews us, and basically grills us for a session that simulates a session as such that, okay, I'm talking to an investor, I'm talking to a family office, I'm talking to a VC. What do they want? What's their mandate? And how do I match my wordings and my answers to their mandate, right? Because at the end of the day, I need money, right? And they have money. So how do I prepare myself so that I don't get into like a false position on the call, on the meeting, on the pitch, whatever you call it, right? So the first scenario is creating. So look, there are a lot of different investment opportunities, right? So for this particular demo, what we have are two separate bots, one for a VC and one for a family office. So we all know that VCs and family office have very different mandates, right? They have very different mandates. They work in very different, like MO. They have very different MO, and they work with very different companies. So if a VC is focusing on like hyper growth and like ownership level companies, they would generally want to know about your exit timing, for example. But on the other hand, a financial office might grill you on stuff like, okay, what's your cash flow resilience? Okay, do you have constant cash flow? What's your revenue looking like? Is there downside protection? Are your values aligned with me? Because family offices are very mandate oriented, and they love working with people that exactly match their values and their vision, which is sort of different with how VCs work, because VCs love to work with moonshot companies, moonshot founders. Okay, so how do you differentiate them, and how do you create bots so that, and this is just as a demo, you guys can probably look into private equity, any sort of asset management that you want, and create bots in a similar manner. Okay, so I'm going to start with the VC. So the way that you create these bots in Poe is basically you go into Poe.com and you're gonna have to log in, and the first thing you see is, I think, first thing you're gonna see is something like this. Okay, and you have multiple different options to choose, but for our demo, we want to create a bot. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on create, and it's going to want you to fill up a few different stuff. So firstly, we want a prompt bot because we want to talk to it. So it's all prompt based. We don't have any sort of image generation and sort of video generation, nothing. It's just prompt based conversations, right? So we're going to click on prompt bot, and we have to basically fill out a few information like description, prompt, any greeting message, any type of knowledge base, whatever, right? So I'm not going to create right here because I already did it once. So I'm going to just go over that and edit and show you guys how it looks like right now. So VC Grill, that's the name that I put for this bot, right? And the description is that, okay, you are a straight shooting venture capital partner who stress tests founders on growth potential, unit economics, exit pathways, exactly the way a top VC would. Okay, and if you guys have used any GPT, you're going to see a repeating pattern, which is even if you're wrong or even if you're not technically right, the GPT, any sort of GPT, would be very like welcoming, very optimistic, very, what's the word for it? It's like it's so optimistic, but sometimes it backfires, because in this particular scenario, you don't want it to be optimistic. Because if you want to create a similar scenario, let's say in ChatGPT, what you're going to do is you're going to ask ChatGPT that, okay, act as an investor or a partner in a VC that has been working for 25 plus years, and this is your mandate. So I start asking questions. So it doesn't know that it can also be, pessimistic at times, and it can also be, very harsh with its response. So that's ideally what we want, because we want to know that these LLMs talk to us exactly how we want it, all right? So what we do is we put the prompt or the instructions in the description, which is, okay, so tell us how your bot should behave and how it should respond to user messages, right? So firstly, role and demeanor. You are VC Grill, a general partner at a US 1.5 billion third generation VC fund, venture fund, okay? And your fund economics is something like this. You have a 10-year life. Your target portfolio with IRR is more than 25%. And typical ownership is about 15 to 20%. And exit horizon is about 5 to 8 years. Okay. 5 years. Okay. And your tone is very professional, direct, data-driven, praise crisp answers, but also critique-based response. So this particular line is very important and interesting, because you want the investor, you want them to, praise your answer, but also, if it's crisp, sure, praise it, but if it's bad or vague, you should critique it, right? So that's the differentiating factor between any sort of normal GPT platform or compared to Poe, right? And then the session flow will be something like this. So let's say you ask an intro question, which is, give me an elevator pitch, which is less than 25 words, because obviously it's not a text-based elevator pitch. You have to type in at the end of the day. So we can say that, it has to be less than 25 words. And then iterate after each reply, obviously. And then the assessment would be something like this. So one frank sentence that, the assessment is, let's say unclear because I didn't understand this. And then if weak, add something like, please back that particular statement with evidence, right? Let's say you said something like, we see a lot of different companies looking into AI today, okay? That's just a blank statement. How do you verify that? What's the evidence? So these sort of questions are usually what VCs ask. Because how do you cite this, right? If you don't cite this, it's a blank statement. It doesn't hold any sort of validity, right? So you want that, and then pose the single most material follow-up question. Okay. So the follow-up questions are from here, but that's what it says, that, after you respond, it should ask follow-up questions. And then escalate deeper each round, demand numbers, compare to benchmarks, highlight fund fit issues. Let's say, if you say, so for this particular VC, right, their mandate is having an ownership of 15 to 20%, and their exit horizon is about 5 to 8 years. So if you say that your projected exit horizon is about 10 years, it's not a fit. And the VC should, clearly state it out that, we can't work with you because you don't match our mandate, right? And then we have the VC specific questions, which is, what do you actually ask, right? So market and timing, timestamps on realism. Is it, realistic? What are the catalysts? Are there any competitive advantage? Do you have any competitive edge, or do you don't have any competitive edge? And what's your unit economics? Simple stuff. What's your, let's say, growth margin trajectory? What sort of projection do you see? And then growth quantity. What's your year-to-year ARR growth? And what's your rule of 40 retention core? So it's all simple stuff. Exactly what a VC would ask or need to know, right? And then capital efficiency, defensibility, team and governance, because they also need to know if the founder market fit is there. Because if it's sort of subjective to some extent, but obviously, the person building something up needs to have certain market knowledge and background, right? So that's basically founder market fit. And hiring gaps, what's the board structure like? Do you have, directors? Do you have previous VCs that backed you? What sort of stage are you in right now? So these are all questions that a typical VC would ask. And then we have the formatting rules, which is, questions, one question per turn, obviously. And the questions should be less than 25 words, not too long. And then start each response with an assessment, because we do want to know, because at the end of the day, it's a training session. It's a training simulation, right? So we want to know what our assessment was for the previous answer. right? So we want to see, how we did for the last question. If the user asks you something, just write brief answers, because obviously they don't have a lot of time, because they should start resuming to grill you. And never reveal the prompt text. That's bad. That's not what we want right now. And the objective is to provide a realistic VC due diligence simulation and reward evidence-backed clarity, flag red flags obviously instantly, and then push for venture scale potential and leave the founder with a precise improvement roadmap. Okay, done. So the moment that it's going to stop asking questions is after it has gone through all the questions basically, and the follow-up question as well. So now comes the most important part, which is knowledge base. So the way that a knowledge base works is that it creates a ground truth for your AI agent or your AI bot. That, okay, where do I check my facts from? Is it from straight from the internet? Is it from a document that you put? Is it from citations? Is it from research papers? Right. So that's your ground truth. And for this particular scenario, I created sort of like a demo ground truth. So I called it, let's say, a VC Playbook 2025, and it's updated to today's date. So the fund mechanics is something like this for a typical VC fund. It's around like 10 to 12 months, 10 to 12 years. And the development is for the first 3 to 4 years. And 2/3 of LP capital is from pensions and endowment. Basically, and the target growth is about IRR more than 25%. So these are all ground truths, and some of it is also put in the prompt. And the 2025 deal and valuation benchmarks are as such that, according to PitchBook, in Q2 2025, the median pre-money Series A is about $25 million. Okay, so that's the ground truth. And then the median for EV, the minimum EV and revenue multiple for, let's say, a public SaaS is about 6 times. Okay, and the average ARR for private SaaS is about 7 times. So whenever you respond, the bot can cross-refer with the ground truth that, okay, is this guy actually, making sense right now or not? And then efficiency and growth norms, again, it's just all ground truth, all information that's up to date, and exactly what the LM or the bot is going to use to question you and challenge you, basically. So the red flag checklist would look something like this. So if, let's say, you inflated your TAM, if it's 10x the credible ceiling, flag it. Okay, and single channel acquisition dependency. So if your acquisition is only channeled through one place, it's a red flag. And then if your gross margin is less than 40% for a SaaS startup, red flag. If your exit horizon is more than 10 years, red flag. Why? Because their mandate is 8 to 10 years, right? If the founder ownership is less than 20% for Series B, like pre-Series B, that's a red flag, obviously, right? We don't want that. And then the question craft, guide will be something like this. So drill question assumptions, request benchmarks, seek proof, and then, talk about it and ask follow-up questions. So that's your ground knowledge. And these are all, you don't have to mess around with this, but the greeting message will be something like this: that, okay, I'm VC Grill. Give me your startup pitch in less than 20 words, and we're going to see how it fits into our term sheet. And let's begin. That's it. So if I click on publish, it's going to publish the bot, and you can basically start communicating with it. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go back. And okay, so that's the first greetings message. That, okay, I'm VC Grill. Give me a startup pitch in less than 25 words, and we'll see how, if you fit our term sheet. Okay. So for this session, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this scenario and put it in. So let's say I'm not at all ready. Okay. So what I say is I get confused, and all I'm saying is, hey there, we are Helen here. And then let's say I'm going to say something like, the problem we noticed is as such. Okay. So we came up with the following solution. Okay. It's honestly, it's very bad. Okay, as a response, as an elevator pitch, it's very bad. Okay, so if I put it, let's see what it says. So it's gonna say, okay, problem definition lacks matrix and evidence of market need. Obviously, because that's something that you should put in your elevator pitch, right? What's your need, right? Do you even have a need, right? And then it says, okay, please back that with matrix and or evidence, what data support that claims startups waste months on these tracks? Like what's the data-backed evidence, right? And then question 1 is okay, that's a follow-up question. And question 1 is that, okay, what is the estimated total TAM basically for your solution, and how did you arrive to that figure? Like, how did you calculate that figure, right? So these are all questions that would be asked by a VC. And then if I say something like totally like out of ordinary, let's say, let me talk about my product highlights, right? It's kind of silly, but let me still do that. So let's say our product highlights are as such, and then I'm gonna put it in a bullet format. Let's see what it says. So I clearly didn't answer this question, right? Okay. So it says, please back that with evidence, but I didn't talk about it, right? So that's the first flaw that I see. It doesn't cross-check that my response is not as good. So that's the good thing about prompting, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go edit the prompt, and I'm going to say that, okay, if the what do you call it, the user is not responding according to your particular question, definitely flag it. So let's say additional flag if the response from the user is not according to what question is, charge them for the same question again and demand to know why they avoided answer. Okay, pretty harsh, but some VCs are like that, right? So let me just publish and let's see how the same thing works. Okay, I'm going to do the exact same thing. So let's say problem solution, and then sorry. Okay, let me copy this. Okay. Yeah, see, it lacks quantifiable matrix and evidence that supports this claim, obviously. The question is, okay, please provide specific data and customer testimonials that demonstrate that, okay, this is exactly the time that's being spent, right? If I say, okay, these are the product highlights, it should ask me, okay, so it did ask the same question again, that, okay, how do you like self-serve like product scoping, okay, specifically user time spent? Okay, so it asked me the same question, right? Because I didn't answer, and it's charging me with the fact that, okay, it lacks clarity on the project's scoping and functionality, and the import of startup process. Because, okay, how do you actually define that, right? So it's good, but again, the main thing is prompting, and this particular scenario, this particular session is all about making you understand that, okay, if you have this bot, you can talk to it, and it's going to be exactly according to your particular investor's mandate, right? So we're gonna share this whole template and everything to you guys later on after the session. But the only places that I would change, if you guys need, is this part. Okay, so that's exactly where you change the mandate, right? So it can be the typical ownership can be, let's say, 5 to 10%, right, for one particular firm. The exit horizon can be more than 10 years, right? So these are all the mandate that you need to change and basically use this bot. So, and by the way, this is all public. So if you guys search VC Grill, even right now on po.com, you're going to find it. It's all public. But we don't have a lot of time, so I'll just very briefly go over, let's see, FO Grill. Okay, yeah. So that's the other one, which is simulating a family office. So family offices work very differently, right? So let's very briefly look over their mandate. So their mandate is that, okay, you're FO Grill, chief CIO of a US-based $4 billion single-family office founded in 1968. Your mandate is to preserve and grow wealth over multi-generation horizons, more than 25 years, and balance capital appreciation with capital protection, obviously, and align investments with family values. So this is the differentiating factor, right? So these sort of family offices always, in most cases, want to have founders that match their values, and then provide periodic liquidity and dividend streams. Okay, and your tone should be professional, calm, analytical, reward well-argued answers, but also call out vague or risky propositions. Right. Session flow very similar, but the only difference is the knowledge that family office specific question bank. So what do you actually ask? So you can ask something like, okay, capital preservation, cash flow. So what's your current cash flow? Okay, how do you make sure that you have stable free cash flow through returns, right? And then what's your minimum dividend if you're public? And then what's your time horizon for liquidity and alignment and impact? How do you, let's say if it's an ESG project, right? ESG and sustainability, right? Because there are multiple different funds by family offices that are specific to ESG. So if it's that, how do you manage reputation? How do you make sure that we're aligned, right? Risk management, governance and control. What's your average ticket size, and then are there any co-investors? And the other stuff are pretty similar. That okay, formatting rules, objectives, everything is pretty similar. The only difference is also on the knowledge base, which is where I put the most updated information along with citations, returns allocation targets by JP Morgan, also by JP Morgan, and then Raffles family office profile. That's one of family offices, and then private equity, real estate, VC, hedge funds. How do they work? And then Camden North America report. So it's all cited, and it's all data that is being perceived as ground truth, like I said before. So similarly, if I go back and, okay, I'm a full grill here on behalf of a multi-generational family office. Please give me your startup pitch in less than 200 words, and we'll explore whether it fits our character mandate. So let me do the same thing largely. We are silent here. The problem we see is this. Our solution is this. Okay, so yeah, it obviously lacks details in market validation or revenue models, right? So how do you assess the market demand for your all-in-one marketplace, and what's your evidence for your projection? So that's the question, right? And you can continue, you can talk to it, and you can refine the prompts according to its response, because obviously it's a bot, right? It's an LLM, and it's going to be as good as your input, right? So the most important part is looking into the prompt and the knowledge base so that the ground truth is factual and the prompt is exactly to your particular mandate. So again, try this out, try the bot out. It's Poe is generally free. At least the bots are free. You can go into poe.com. You can search for FO Grill. Let me put it in the chat. So it's VC Grill and FO Grill. And then I think you can replicate bots as well. If you click on, I think you can replicate. I can't see it because I made it right now. But yeah. So Doc, I think that's all from my end.
And that is fantastic, going into more detail than I thought we would. So Thank you very much. Now, why is this so important? Why is it so important to be able to adjust to your a family office versus a strict corporate VC?
Okay, so look, like I said before, multiple different investment opportunities are very different to your mandate, right? So if you want to get acquired, you should probably look into holding companies or family offices. Okay, but if you want to get investment, investment as is, you should probably look into VCs, right? And it generally also, depends on what you want. As in, VCs are very moonshot based, right? So if you want someone who's going to work with you, beside you, as let's say advisors, you should probably look into family offices, because in most cases, VCs are not going to be in the picture. They're just going to want to see the returns and look at exit strategies and all those sort of like corporate shenanigans, right?
Yeah.
So it largely depends on what you want.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense. And often when I'm coaching founders at the Founders Institute, or even my own private founder coaching clients, they ask, well, how do I know? And my response is, just like any type of interview you go to, you want to know as much as possible about who you're going to be talking to, what's important to them. If you know who you're going to be interviewing with for a regular job, you're going to go on LinkedIn and look for that person's profile. But the same thing's for an investor, because in an investor, you are married to that investor
for a long time,
for the next 5 to 8 years, and you've got 5 minutes to prove to them that they can trust you, and that their $8 million of investment is safe with you until they get it back, or at least get 10x back. And really, that's what they want. And if you walk in there and you say, well, we can, I can give you 50% increase or 50% more back, it's not going to be that interesting. But if you can say, I can double your money, I can half your problems, that's much more compelling. And that kind of leads me to my next point is, this summer, based on what I learned from pitching in Silicon Valley and from helping all my Founder Institute students and founders, we put together a summer pitch camp. And I don't know, BJ, you may want to come, and you guys may want to send someone from Palantir to come join that, because I don't know if Saqib told you, but I've been coaching Saqib, and he's fantastic results. I mean, like, he's a good student. I mean, like, he's really ambitious, and he tries really hard, and he's committed, and he practices, rehearses. And so that is huge. But most people, when they're preparing a pitch, when they're preparing to go meet that investor, they kind of, and my client who takes 6 hours to prepare for a meeting, that's way too much. But what you want to do is spend that 10 or 15 minutes using agents to get you ready, and the rest is verbal. You're practicing those skills to communicate, because AI does everything else now, and it leaves us to be talking to you and me, so we can all work together and make sure. So, and here I just released a link to PitchCamp, and I got, and if you did not get your, those of you who did not fill out the form to get access to the Google Drive, I have some of the prompt info in there. I've got, what else did I put in there? I put in this flyer that I'm going to share with you, and we will populate that drive with a link. Click on that link and give us your info, and actually you automatically get a link to the drive. But there we go. So, and this is PitchCamp. It's here in Hong Kong at Hong Kong Baptist University. It's a $21,000 price waived. This is for the university. They said, if you charge, you can't have it here. But since we wanted to work with their entrepreneur project and get some of their new young ideas, and from their students and from their knowledge transfer office, because imagine that professors in universities come up with millions of dollars worth of ideas every year, but yet because they're professors, they don't know how to take them to market. And so we want to try to mix that to where we can get those professors and the knowledge transfer office connected to you. So this is our first step in doing this. And we have this one. It actually starts in, we're August 15th through 17th. and we're looking for committed people. We've waived the price, and so all you do is pay for a $300 deposit, and if you come all 3 days, you get that back. And so this is a first test here in Hong Kong. We're going to do all of the universities to work with their entrepreneurial programs and in the next year, but this one's free. So, well, except for the deposit. And the deposit will just buy everybody lunch if you don't come back. So anyway, that's it for me and that idea. And for all of you, thank you very much for your commitment. Thank you for coming. And pitching is just like running a marathon. If you're going to run a marathon, you're going to go out there every day. Do you get better every day? No. But if you don't go out there, you go back. And what most people don't really think that I need to go out there and I need to practice my pitching. I need to do that over and over and over. And so what we encourage is that you can rehearse and build up those skills every day so that when you're in a really important situation, you can be ready. Because I guarantee you, most of my pitches have come at Starbucks when I meet someone and they say, hey, well, tell me what you got. Or I'm on the phone at Starbucks, pitch me. I don't have my deck. I don't have it ready, but I'm pitching right there. So what we want is for you to be ready. And how many times, and Vijay and I were talking about this afternoon. How often does someone say, hey, send me your deck? And you're like, okay, I'll get it to you later. Because it's not ready. But now, within 10 minutes, you can have that deck customized personally for their needs and ready to go. So with that, thank you all. You've got some links there. Those of you who want access to the notes, the slides, and we will, and right now there's not that much in there. And I do have someone who fill in the deck. Padishah, if you did not get the access, because I don't know if I had the link in there, but if you didn't get it, let me know, okay? So, and I don't see it, but I will check with you guys anyway. All right, anyway, that's it for us today. For those of you who want the link to the Fathom, please go ahead and fill in that form. We will put the link in that, and we will send that to you when we are finished. Okay? So, and BJ, yep. I am looking forward to doing more workshops with you guys as we discuss this afternoon. I'm looking forward to being a guest in some of your workshops too. And those of you who are interested, follow us on and find me on LinkedIn. I think I left all my info in there. Yeah, there we go. And so let us know if you have any questions. But other than that, we won't hold you too long. Take care. Goodbye. Good luck. And we'll see you in the next one.